Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are really getting into some foundational ideas by cracking open a book that's been incredibly influential and, let's be honest, pretty controversial too. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
It's such a compelling book to start with because the whole conflict is right there in the title. You have this young man, and he's getting these wildly different pieces of advice about money from two father figures.
Exactly. You have his biological father, the poor dad, who was,
hmm
highly educated, a PhD, a great career, but he was always struggling, always worried about financial security.
Mm. And then you have the rich dad. This was his best friend's father, a high school dropout
Mm,
who ends up building this huge empire and
yeah.
becomes one of the richest men in Hawaii.
It's just such a stark contrast. The educated dad's advice was all about job security, climb the ladder, save your money.
While the rich dad was telling him, no, you need to learn how to manage risk. You have to learn how to make money work for you.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We've distilled the 6 big lessons from the book to give you some real clarity on these ideas. We want to help you get past all the noise and have those, aha moments.
Especially around the core concepts, like what an asset really is. That one's a game changer.
Okay, so let's jump right in. What does Kiyosaki see as the absolute root of the problem? Why do so many people struggle?
Well, he puts it very bluntly. He says something like, the main reason people struggle is because they spend years in school but learn nothing about money.
Which leads right into lesson number 1.
It does. It's the foundational idea of the whole book. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them.
It sounds simple, almost like a cliche, but the difference is huge.
It's everything. It's the difference between trading your time for a paycheck and building systems that generate income while you sleep.
And this is what he calls the rat race, right? This cycle people get trapped in, what actually fuels it?
It's driven by two emotions that are just so powerful for all of us, fear and desire.
Okay, break that down.
So first, there's fear. The fear of not paying your bills, of getting fired.
Yeah.
That's what keeps you showing up to a job you might hate. It makes you play it safe.
You cling to that paycheck because you're scared of what happens if it's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then the paycheck arrives, and that's when desire kicks in. You know, the desire for a nicer car, a bigger house, a better vacation.
So you work harder to get a raise.
And the second you get that raise, your spending goes up to match it. You upgrade your lifestyle, but you're still stuck. The pattern just repeats. Get up, go to work, pay bills. Over and over.
He tells a great story about this. When he was just 9 years old, working for his rich dad for 10 cents an hour.
Oh, yeah. He got so angry, he felt completely exploited and went to complain.
But the low pay was the whole point, wasn't it?
It was completely intentional.
Yeah.
Rich Dad told him, I wanted you to feel that anger. He wanted him to get a real taste of what it feels like to work your tail off for barely anything. That frustration. That was meant to be the spark.
Wow. So it wasn't a job, it was a psychological intervention.
Pretty much. He was trying to ignite a different way of thinking. He said true learning requires passion, and passion is just anger and love combined. He wanted to spark that creativity to find another way.
Instead of just accepting it.
Right. It's the difference between saying, I can't afford it, which just, shuts your brain down.
And asking, okay, so how can I afford it?
Exactly. And that question, how, forces you to learn a new skill set.
Which brings us to lesson 2, I assume. Financial literacy.
That's it. It's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep. We all know those stories, right? Lottery winners, pro athletes who make millions and then go broke.
Because they don't have that literacy.
They don't. And the number one rule of financial literacy, according to the book, is knowing the difference between an asset and a liability.
Okay, his definitions here are famously simple.
So simple. Rich people acquire assets. The poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. That's the trap.
Let's define them then, based purely on cash flow.
An asset puts money in your pocket. Think of rental income from a property, stock dividends, things like that. Money flows to you.
And a liability.
Takes money out of your pocket, your mortgage, your car payment, credit card debt. Money is flowing away from you.
Okay, and this is where he picks a fight with, well, pretty much all conventional wisdom. The house.
The house. His poor dad said, our home is our greatest asset. But his rich dad said, no, your primary residence is a liability.
And that is highly controversial. People get really defensive about that idea.
For good reason. And we should acknowledge, there are tax advantages to owning a home, and historically they do appreciate. It's not all bad.
But if we stick to that super strict cash flow definition,
Then your house is a liability. Every single month, money is flowing out for the mortgage, for taxes, for insurance, for repairs. It's not putting a dime in your pocket.
So the cash flow pattern for most people is get paid from your job, and that money immediately flows out to expenses and liabilities.
Correct. For the rich, the pattern is flipped. The income comes from their assets. That cash then pays their expenses, and any surplus goes right back into buying more assets.
So the goal is to build that asset column until it's generating more than enough to cover your lifestyle.
That's the entire game.
Okay, so once you get that, the next lesson is about focus. He says, mind your own business. What does he mean by that?
He means people confuse their profession with their business. Your profession is your job, how you generate income right now. Your business is your asset column.
And most people spend their whole lives minding someone else's business.
Absolutely. They work for the company's owner, for the government through taxes, for the bank through their mortgage. They're building everyone else's assets, but not their own.
So the rich focus on building their own asset column.
Intensely. He has this great analogy where once a dollar goes into your asset column, it's like an employee. It works for you 24/7, and it can work for generations.
The story he uses to illustrate this is perfect. It's about Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's.
Oh, I love this story. He was speaking to some MBA students, and he asks them, "What business am I in?"
And they all say the hamburger business, obviously.
And he says, "No, I'm not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate."
Because the real asset wasn't the burgers, it was the land under every single franchise.
That's it. He understood the long-term game. The hamburgers just paid for the real estate. That's minding your own business.
This next part gets a bit more technical, but it's maybe the most important. Lesson 4, the power of a corporation.
Right. This is what he calls the biggest secret of the rich. A corporation is just a legal tool, but it's how you use it that matters, especially for taxes.
Okay, so for an employee, the structure is earn, tax, spend. You get paid, the government takes its cut immediately, and you live on what's left.
Yes, but a corporation gets to reverse that. The structure is earn, spend, then tax.
So the corporation makes money, then it spends everything it possibly can on legitimate business expenses,
Oh.
and it's only taxed on whatever little is left over.
It's a massive advantage. You get to use pre-tax dollars.
Yeah.
He talks about things like, a vacation becoming a board meeting in Hawaii or the car payment becoming a company expense.
Now, to a lot of people listening, that might sound a little aggressive, maybe even shady.
And that's the reaction most people have. But he argues this is just using the tax code as it was written. The laws are designed to incentivize businesses to spend and reinvest. It's not illegal tax evasion, it's legal tax avoidance. It's about knowing the rules of the game.
So it's not just about earning money, it's about the structure you build around it.
And protecting it. A corporation also shields your personal assets from lawsuits. It's a financial fortress.
So you need the structure, but you also need the inner game. Lesson 5 is about financial IQ.
Yeah, he says it's not the academically smart who get ahead, it's the bold. Financial genius needs that technical knowledge, your financial IQ, but it also needs courage, guts.
And that technical knowledge, that IQ, is made up of 4 different skills.
Right, a synergy of 4 things. First, accounting, so you can actually read the numbers. Second, investing, the science of making money. Third, understanding markets, supply and demand. And fourth, law, so you can use corporations and understand the tax advantages.
And you need all 4 working together.
You do. What good is making a huge gain in the market if you don't have the legal structure to protect it from taxes or lawsuits? The synergy is key.
Which feeds right into the next idea, work to learn, not for money.
This one gets overlooked, but it's so important. The rich dad encouraged them to take jobs not for the paycheck, but for the skills they could acquire.
Skills like sales, marketing, communication.
Exactly. Skills you'll need to build your asset column. So if you're afraid of rejection, you go take a sales job, even if it pays less. You're not working for the money, you're working for the education. The skill is the real asset.
That takes a lot of boldness, which brings us back to those psychological barriers we have to overcome. He says the biggest difference is how we manage fear.
Specifically, the fear of losing money. Most people play not to lose. They're so scared of losing what they have that they stick to safe investments with tiny returns, or they don't invest at all.
But winners are different.
For winners, losing is part of the process. A loss is a lesson. It inspires them to get smarter. He uses that great Texas analogy about the Alamo.
Right. They don't bury their failures. They shout, "Remember the Alamo!" They turn it into a rallying cry.
It's a mindset. Failure becomes a catalyst for future success. It doesn't stop them, it focuses them.
And besides fear, he talks about two other big barriers:
Right.
laziness and cynicism.
Laziness is a tricky one. It usually shows up as laziness by staying busy.
So you fill your schedule with unimportant tasks to avoid the big, scary, important ones, like managing your finances.
Exactly. And he says the cure for that is a little bit of greed, a healthy desire for a better life that makes you ask that question again. How can I afford it? It gets your brain working on solutions.
And then the cynic, the person who just shoots down every idea.
The cynic is paralyzed by doubt. They criticize everything from the sidelines. They're the person who hears about a great real estate opportunity and immediately says, but I don't want to fix toilets.
And they miss the entire opportunity because they're focused on one small solvable problem.
Well, the winner just analyzes the deal and, hires a good property manager. They see the asset, not the toilets.
So if we bring this all together, the message is pretty clear. You have to focus on that asset column like a laser. Understand cash flow, use the legal tools available.
And prioritize your own financial education and honestly, your own courage over the illusion of job security. It's an active choice. You have to choose to learn and take calculated risks instead of just seeking comfort.
Okay, let's leave our listeners with one final provocative thought from the book. Rich Dad always said this: money is not real. It is what we agree it is.
Which is more true today than ever, isn't it? If money is just an idea, just an agreement, then your greatest asset isn't what's in your bank account, it's your mind, your financial intelligence. Because that's what solves problems and creates money out of thin air. Hard work alone can't do that.
So the real question you have to ask yourself is, how are you investing in the most powerful asset you'll ever control?